What? So one of the things that we try to do here for the first part of the morning is just kind of give you an overview and have everybody at a baseline. Alright, so of understanding, so as we continue on, you know what's kind of going on a little bit, you can start navigating a little bit easier and figure out what's what. We're going to start diving out even deeper into the nitty-gritty of what you need now for the first days of school with students and all that kind of stuff. Okay? And so Matt's going to start us off first, just kind of looking at some of the setup with the gradebook and so on and so forth. And then this is where the piece with Infinite Campus is going to be really important, but I'll let him dive into all that.
Okay, so to get started, I'll ask you to have a couple of things ready. First thing would be Schoology, where we are right now. If you're following along on the paper note sheet, I'm on the bottom of page 2. Okay. The other thing I'd just like you to have at the ready or nearby would be the categories that you're using in Infinite Campus, their names, the verbiage. We want to be really careful that it's exactly as it would be in Infinite Campus because we don't want any little thing to throw anything else off. So if you had you just type things off the cuff, but you're not quite sure exactly what it looks like in Infinite Campus, maybe just look at it in there. My working assumption is going to be that you know how to set up your grade calc options, that you set up your categories and everything in Infinite Campus. If that stuff isn't set up, it's not going to calculate a grade anyway. What we're going to do then is create the mirror image of those categories in Schoology, so that way they can talk back and forth. We want to make sure all the different things like categories, points, and so on and so forth completely lock in, so that way when Infinite Campus pulls in that information, it's going to have a home and a place to be. If anything is off, then it's not going to talk right. Okay? The other thing I just want to make sure that you understand, and I put this as the first bullet point note, is we really want to encourage you to be consistent about the way that you grade. And here's what I mean. If I make an assignment in Schoology, I probably plan to grade it in Schoology because I made it in Schoology. I know that when I've had students, they've been students who've turned in something late, they're absent, there's something that went on, and I had to go back and update the gradebook. Okay? If I start doing my grading in Schoology and I sync it back to Infinite Campus, when I have that student that has the next day, they come in for whatever reason, I have to make sure I update it in Schoology and push it to Infinite Campus. Okay? What's probably going to happen is when I had students handing in late work, I tend to get bull rushed. Last minute, a lot of things come in. I happen to have Infinite Campus open. I just plug away. If you're doing things in Schoology, you're going to start missing the boat. Because if you start changing something here, but you're working here, it's going to start playing the game of telephone, and things might start going missing. So I just want to emphasize that if you created it in Schoology, continue to grade it in Schoology and sync it back. If you're doing something that you're not even thinking about Schoology, you just set it up in Infinite Campus, then grade it in there. Not a problem, just like you do right now. That make sense? Okay. So those are the things I just wanted to put out there for you. Does everyone have all their materials nearby, or they can access it pretty quick as need be? Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to click on Grade Setup. Choose a course. I was social science, so I tend to have 2 preps. And usually I had 3 sections of one prep and 2 sections of another prep. So I would probably start with the one that I have the most classes of. If you've grouped together those sections, then you're in the umbrella. You just got to do this thing once, and it's going to take care of everybody. If you have the discrete class periods, you're going to have to repeat this as appropriate for the number of sections that you need to repeat it for. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you from top to bottom through what these things mean and how these things are set up and things to keep in mind, and then I'm going to give you time to do it for yours. And then I'm going to give you some time to go through and chase through some of the other courses that you might have just so everything's set up. Okay? So the first thing I just want to talk about is the overall screen. The first thing you see here is categories. Okay? These are going to be categories that you're going to be typing in manually by clicking the Add button. Okay? You'll type in the name of the category, and you want to make sure it's exactly as it is in Infinite Campus, so that way we're talking to each other apples to apples.
Case sensitive everything.
Yeah, I would even just literally copy and paste it. I don't trust space or something. Calculated by, the default is total points. Leave that alone. Drop lowest, leave that alone. And then weight, if you do happen to do some sort of a weight, you can type in that percentage. Now there's a total points and there is a percent category. You'll also see this in Infinite Campus. And if you didn't know what that means is this. hypothetically, I have 2 assignments for a student. Student got a 5 out of 5 on an assignment, and then a 60 out of 100. If I do total points, the student's grade is 65 divided by 105, which is probably a little bit less than 65. Okay? If I was to grade this by percentages, what this means is student got 100% and a 60%. And if you average 100 and a 60, that average would be an 80%. It doesn't matter how many points or how few points that assignment is worth. The percentages drive that grade calculation. So you probably want to use total points because that's probably how you calculate your grade. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and type in a category. I'm going to call it discussions. Okay, I'll put in a weight. I'll just call it like 15%. I don't know. Okay.
I didn't see the weight.
You didn't see the weight one? Oh, you know why? Because I have the thing checked. Let's try that again. I'll click add. Yeah, there's a checkbox.
Just cancel and go back and click.
Refresh.
Right next to categories, just click.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So I can go ahead and type in my categories. If you check this box, it'll weight the categories, and then you would make sure you put in your percentages. If I don't weight my categories in that, I just have one big old bucket of points, and I happen to call part of that bucket quizzes and part of it homework, but it just all goes together, I would leave it unchecked. But if homework is worth 50% of my grade, and quizzes are worth 30% of my grade, and whatever else is worth 20%, then I would check that box, and I would add in the percentages as appropriate.
So I'm sorry, if we don't have the weight option, can you show us what to do again?
It's in a
Sure.
different place.
All right.
Not strangely.
Is it?
Because some people haven't entered a category.
Okay, so let's go ahead and enter a category first.
Not working for me either.
There you go.
Have to wait till you have them.
Yeah. So go ahead and take a look at your list. Choose your categories. Go ahead and enter in a couple of them. I'll give you some time to get caught up.
After you've got them all there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you always have to do that. Yeah.
Already, so I just
You just want to mirror
Mirror exactly.
categories. Yes, exactly.
Case that's made identical also.
I would have no margin for error because that script is good. Yeah,
Why offended if you don't have?
exactly. Okay. Does anyone have any troubles typing in a category or categories?
Every time I put in the weight categories, so I changed it to 35.
Because you probably have to get enough to make it worth 100. So maybe you gotta put more categories that way. Right. Because otherwise you can't. We're going to get to that. Yes, that's going to be down the list. We're going to definitely talk about that. Okay. Do people have enough categories and to be able to move forward?
Almost.
Almost? Okay, I'll give you a moment to get yourself caught up. I'll get to that next. It'll basically make it the default. When you make an assignment, it will be the first one. Okay, so we have some categories here. In my case, I have discussions, test and quiz, classwork, sample category. If you're someone that doesn't use categories at all, even in Infinite Campus, you have to have something as a category. It could be points, assignments, whatever you call it. You just have to have something. As an aside, it was suggested to us when we were trained to have like a category like called not for grade or ungraded. That way you have a place to put it in limbo, if you will, and then when you're ready to assign it to a grade book and bring it on over, you can when you're ready for it. So if you'd like to add in just a generic category that doesn't calculate into a grade, this would be a place to do it. I personally didn't weight my categories for my freshmen, but you might for your classes. So if that's the case, you would make sure you've checked that box, and you've assigned the percentages as appropriate for calculating a grade. Okay? The next thing is, you notice these little up and down arrows.
Assignments with just 0 points too,
Sure,
so you can do it that way.
you could.
And if I drop the lowest AP essay, should I click on the one that says drop lowest or not?
You could, but that's going to be more of a thing that's going to happen in Infinite Campus, right? That's where you set that rule. So, if you want to just make it mirror as much as possible, that'd probably be the best practice. But Infinite Campus really is the ultimate determiner of grades. Okay. You can also drag and drop the order and the sequence. Okay. When we create assignments, we're going to be creating a drop box, and these drop boxes have all your categories. So you decide which order the drop box is going to be. Probably at the very bottom is the thing that you use least frequently. You're also going to notice a little star. Okay, the star, if you click on a category with the star, you make that the default assignment. So no matter what you create in Schoology, the default thing that will show up in the category drop box will be whatever it is that you star. Okay? And you can change it if you want to. You know what, maybe I'm more of a classwork person. Right? So far, so good? All right. What's that?
The weight category.
Do you have a,
Deletes every classwork.
if you click the box?
Every time I click weight category,
So there's like
it's back
one
to
giant category.
Yeah, and then you can change all the numbers and go to the bottom and save.
Yeah, if you don't press
Yeah.
There's a save.
I'm about
Yes.
to stop.
Oh my.
I haven't gotten there yet. Okay, moving on now. Grading periods and final weights. For the purpose of training, Franz, Travis, and I are living in Sandbox. We don't have course load. We don't have students. We live in the Sandbox. And you'll probably see the appropriate S1, 2019, 2020, whatever string of text that is for the calendar that you would have in Infinite Campus.
Or not.
Okay. Gradebook Scale, it's going to be numeric. That means numbers determine the grade. You could have some other scales, like a 1 to 4, that'd be more like a mastery model, right? You could have some other scales that can be created, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then you could also, if you wanted to, click round, period, final grades, but I would ignore that. Scrolling down, where it says visibility settings, I'd like to really direct your attention here. Like Tiffany said this morning, Infinite Campus is the final place where grades are. What's my student's grade? It's an Infinite Campus. Oh, you did really good in Schoology last week. Wonderful. Go to Infinite Campus. Everything's in Infinite Campus. And so what we could do then is we could actually turn off grades in Infinite Campus, so you'll never even see what your grades are with Schoology. Schoology. So you can't even see what your grades are with Schoology assignments. It's just a collection of points. Okay? So if you click on hide overall grade in the student grade report, and hide grading period grades in the student grade report, a student will never know what their grade is in Schoology. You will. They won't. Because they're going to Infinite Campus to check their grades. Okay? So make sure you check those boxes. Okay? If at this point you're happy, we can go ahead and hit Save Changes, and that way it saves things. Okay? Right. There you go.
We're all Google spoiled. The auto
Quality
save.
PD. All right. Going on now over to the sidebar here, the right-hand side. You're going to notice two things, scales and rubrics. Okay? So you probably see as your default a grading scale of numeric. That'd be at 90, 80, 70, 60. If you go to Infinite Campus, the GUHSD grading scale is 90, 80, 70, 60. There may be cases where you might have a different grade scale. So for instance, with my Global Studies class, I didn't use 90, 80, 70, 60. I did have an A, B, C, D, and an F, but the percentages were slightly different. If I wanted to make a new grade scale, I would click on Scales, and then Add the scale. And then what I can do here is I can name it, so I can just show you like a demonstration. And I can go ahead and create a grade range. So maybe I want to have like, I don't know, an 87 to 100 be like an A. I'm sorry, so I should do this. I should have an A would be 87. Maybe a B is going to be an 80. So on and so forth. And I'm just making up numbers. Okay. What I can also do here is there's this thing that says letter conversion, and so far as I can understand it, sometimes you have a student that shows up in your class like week 14, and they have a piece of paper, and it says like World History C.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is that? Kid is like, I don't know, I didn't know it was an English class. You have to figure out what that C is when you go to Infinite Campus to create an assignment. So far as I can figure, what would you call that? For me, I would just split the difference. I would just call a C a 75%, unless I had something sort of compelling. So what I could do here is I could just have a letter conversion percentage of maybe 94 or 95. I'm just splitting the difference. I'm just making up the numbers here as well. Okay, and I could hit save. What I've done here now is, whoops, let's try that again. 62. 66. There we go. So I've made it a new grade scale demonstration. Okay, I can make that the default grade scale if I want to. Okay, and if I go on down here, I can hit save. Okay, the next thing that's really helpful and was really, really cool with Schoology is Rubrics. Probably for many of the assignments, project activities you do, there's probably some sort of a rubric. Probably some sort of quality or characteristic that you're looking for. And honestly, it doesn't matter if it's my World War I project or my Cold War project. I'm probably looking for articulation of an argument, use of evidence, so on and so forth. What I can do here is I can actually create rubrics and assign points to these rubrics. And when I actually go through and grade in Schoology, I can look at the student work, and I can just click on the box, and it'll calculate out the score. If I have the app or tablet, I can have work, and I can open up the assignment on a tablet and just simply punch in the scores as I'm looking at work, whether it's physical documents or whether it's something digital. So in order to create a rubric, I've clicked on Rubrics. I can click on Add, and I'll add a rubric. And I can title it whatever I'd like. I then put in whatever criteria I would like. I can put in a description if I'd like. Now, I can't import a rubric I have from a Word document, but I can copy and paste in the text. Okay? And so then I can create whatever be the appropriate grading scale or sequence. Maybe I have a second criteria, and I only have maybe 2 points for it. Either it is or it's not. I can do a 1 and a 0. And what you're going to notice here is it's going to create points for each row, and it's going to give me a total point value at the bottom here. And then when I go to grade, I would just simply click whichever place I would need to click. Okay. Maybe I have a 10-point rubric, but it's really a 15-point assignment. Well, if I click whatever point value on the rubric, it calculates out the appropriate point value for that assignment. Okay? This is something that's really, really cool if you're looking at something performance-based. If you're looking at something skill-based, maybe I'm doing some sort of discussion, and I want to see students' voice and participation and working with whatever. I can go ahead and I can mark this. I can have a student doing something, and I can sit there and mark it as I'm watching, which is nice. I could have maybe a physical thing being handed in and score a rubric in Schoology using the app or the computer while I'm looking at a physical project. It's a really nice thing.
I know you use the assignment marks a lot.
Yes.
In Infinite Campus. Is this, if you were to try and replicate that, would you use this rubric, find a way to
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think that if you're not familiar with assignment marks in Infinite Campus, what that means is I can create basically a rubric, and it'll assign a certain point value or percentage based on how the rubric is marked. Okay. Literally, points will transfer over to Infinite Campus. Nothing else. An assignment mark is an Infinite Campus thing, not a Schoology thing. I could see using something like this because I can see how students perform and how they work on certain aspects of an assignment. And if I start putting in learning objectives like standards-based things or skill-based things, I can start measuring how a student is doing with some sort of a task or performance, which could be a cool thing. So while it's not going to be as convenient in Schoology as it is punching in that number in Infinite Campus, this could be a good thing for feedback and reflection for students and also for the teacher to see how things are going if you come back to something time and again. Okay? Okay. I'll hit create. And then I now have my rubrics all set up. Okay, I would hit save changes. If you were working in a linked umbrella thing where I have a period 3, a period 4, and a period 5, English 1C, that should take care of everyone at once. Now you just have to go to the other course or sections that you have. If you have a little bit more than that, you would need to go back and repeat this process of putting in categories and so on and so forth. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
Since I'm hiding the grades in Schoology so they can only see empty campus, do I need to set up a rubric? A scale? And does that scale have to be
I would say,
exactly the same?
in the
Because
sense,
I'm not really using that.
yes, because you are going to be able to look at student performance in Schoology, right?
Because Infinite Campus, you can set up your own scale.
You could.
So these scales have to also match? Or?
I would recommend it. I would have as few things not match up as perfectly as possible and have these things talk with each other. Okay? If I wanted to have all these things set up, but it's like, man, I really don't want to sit here and do this for like 9 different grade books. What I can choose to do that is go to Copy Settings. Okay? And I can choose any one or number of things that go across the board. So maybe it doesn't matter that I have freshmen and sophomores. We still do some sort of speaking thing. I'm going to use the same rubric. I can copy those rubrics over. Okay? It doesn't matter, how I do a grading scale with my freshmen and my sophomores. My categories are still my categories. I just happen to weight it in this course and not that course. But I can bring over the guts of it. So you can check any one or number of categories, grade scales, and rubrics, and whichever course or courses you'd like to migrate that over to. Okay? Once you do that and hit copy, you've basically cloned out. Okay, so if I make a change right here, it's not going to automatically update it in the thing I copied it to. Okay? If I change it and I hit copy again, I'll double up the number of categories I have in my other course. So just be mindful of that. But if you're doing minor revisions, it might be easier just to copy over everything and then just tweak the 1 or 2 items. If you're looking at rubrics, I would recommend that if you want to change a rubric, update it in one place and title it Updated Rubric, copy that over, then you can delete out the old one. Because if I have like Speaking Rubric and Speaking Rubric, I don't know which Speaking Rubric I'm talking about. But Speaking Rubric 2, Advanced Speaking Rubric, whatever. I'm going to give you a few moments here just to go through this, and we'll be around to help you out too, so you can set up these things. Just be very literal as much as possible, so there's nothing that can go wrong with the translation and the syncing. Yes? Okay.
So, how would I get, I've never used that term.
Absolutely. Is anything as a substandard with state? I don't know if there's
No, like the last time I used something.
So, would you go into the question document and that is on to us to consider? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, wait, actually, it is here.
Oh, it is where?
It's actually under content.
Okay.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, good. Done. Yes.
We still set it up already. And down to the grade.
You're creating an assignment in Schoology and you're pushing it. So the gap is like, cool, you're using Schoology. So what category is it? What is the assignment? How many points is it? Your score. So you want to make sure that if that's a question for you, you can answer it.
So, okay, so the setup, we have to do one full.
So that way, just as much as possible, because there's so much of that script that can go wrong.
Right.
Then is everything working okay now for you?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's okay.
I'm like, I'm the search.
Okay. I did that.
I thought that this was made by Schoology to better.
There's no more time application.
decided like
Okay, because I can't do this. I thought the picture would be. I'm gonna go call.
well, he's already put it on. I think
Are you all going to be set up?
No, you. I think I made my picture.
but I still fit it in the parameters. Yes.
So we're kind of flying black for us.
Jesus. Feels better than what I.
Okay, does anyone else need more time for the gradebook setup or the grade setup? All right, anyone else need more time for the grade setup? Yes, sir. 3 more minutes, okay. Give you a couple more minutes there. Is everything working okay for you? Like, you know what you're doing with it?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
That would make me crazy too.
His is our globes.
I'll reply to them.
Okay. Now I'm interested. You didn't like the one where they gave you? You didn't like
Okay, so, hey Travis, here's a question. All right, so that takes care of the grade stuff, and a couple things I just want to leave you with is just leave no room for error with Infinite Campus. When you have script and all that complicated stuff, you don't want things to go wrong. So we're really trying to err on the side of caution, and maybe it's paranoid caution, I don't know, but we just want to be as literal as possible and not leave any place for something to go awry. Okay. Second thing is, if you want to change your defaults, you can change those stars. If you want to add a rubric, you may. Just make sure it's saved. Use the copy settings to bring things over to other courses if you'd like to do that. And that's a nice thing to do as well. And when you are working again, since we've already turned off, and hopefully you've gone to your subsequent courses, you've turned off that hide overall grade report for students. And everywhere. You have to physically do this everywhere, even if you have copied over rubrics and categories. Okay? Again, we want to emphasize Infinite Campus is where grades are. High school students are high school students. They'll find the path of least resistance. You want to make sure they don't have anything to work with Schoology. They go to Infinite Campus for the grades. On this document that we have here, there's a resource called Schoology Documentation. If you go to the digital version, it's from Schoology. It's really nice. It'll help you out answering some questions. It helped us when we were learning ourselves. And last thing is just be consistent about where you do the grading. If you grade in Schoology, update in Schoology. Don't update in Infinite Campus, and vice versa. Okay? That at least will take care of those headaches and things that you have to go through. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to start looking at the development of materials in that. Was it? Was it? We did a break. You want a break? Okay. I guess we're ready to start looking at the next section. Okay. So we're going to start looking at the development of resources and courses in that. And we're going to be looking at some organization. And so that will be on your agenda, managing course materials on the backside middle.